The stars twinkled in the night sky as Bill Carter stared through the large observatory window. His coffee had gone cold, but he didn't care. After 15 years of searching the heavens for signs of alien life, his equipment had detected something extraordinary, an organized fleet of vessels entering the outer edges of the solar system. "Are you seeing this, Karen?" Bill asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Karen Phillips, his research partner, nodded as she adjusted the tracking system. "I'm seeing it, but I still don't believe it. Those aren't asteroids or natural phenomena. Those are ships, Bill. Actual alien ships." Bill reached for the red phone that connected directly to the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. Their little research station in the mountains of Colorado was about to become the center of world-changing events. Within hours, the UEDF had mobilized. Military vessels from Earth and Mars moved into defensive positions. Orbital platforms shifted their weapons toward the incoming fleet. On Earth, people gathered around screens, some in fear, others in wonder. Admiral Scott Wilson stood on the bridge of the UES Guardian, the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. His gray hair and weathered face reflected decades of military service, though he had never expected to be humanity's first line of defense against an alien armada. "Status report," Admiral Wilson demanded, his eyes fixed on the main display showing the approaching vessels. "Sir, the alien fleet has slowed at Neptune's orbit," reported Officer Pam Garcia. "They're broadcasting something. Our systems are trying to decode it." Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Then, unexpectedly, every screen on the bridge flickered and displayed a message in perfect English. "We come in peace. Please stand. Down your weapons. The Galactic Council wishes to establish diplomatic relations with humanity." Admiral Wilson's eyebrows rose. "Well, I'll be damned." 3 days later, the first official meeting between humans and the Galactic Council took place on the neutral ground of the International Space Station. Earth sent its best representatives, Colonel Frank Miller, a decorated military officer, with a level head, Dr. Lisa Wright, one of Earth's leading xenobiologists, and John Davis, Earth's most skilled diplomat. The aliens sent a delegation led by Ambassador Zix Terrell, a tall, slender being with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. Despite the physical differences, the universal translators allowed smooth communication. "We have observed your species for many decades," Ambassador Zix Terrell began, its voice melodic through the translator. "The Galactic Council is pleased to finally make official contact with humanity." John Davis nodded respectfully. "Earth welcomes the opportunity for peaceful relations. We have many questions about your council and its members." As the discussion unfolded, a strange pattern emerged. The alien representatives repeatedly referenced humanity's peaceful nature and aversion to conflict. "Your species writes many songs about peace," said one council member, a reptilian being called Krex. "Your leaders speak often about ending wars. Your people march in your streets demanding disarmament. It is clear that humans fear war above all else." Dr. Wright and Colonel Miller exchanged glances. Something wasn't right about this assessment. "With respect," said Colonel Miller, "I think there's a misunderstanding. Humans don't fear war. We simply prefer peace when possible." The alien representatives made sounds that the translators interpreted as polite laughter. Such modesty. Ambassador Zixa Terrell's upper arms gestured in what might have been amusement. "We have studied your history. Your species constantly speaks of the horrors of war, the need to avoid it. Your philosophers write that war is to be feared and prevented. There is no shame in this. Fear of conflict is the mark of an advanced civilization." John Davis leaned forward. "Ambassador, I believe you're misinterpreting our culture. Humans recognize the terrible cost of war, yes. We work to prevent unnecessary conflicts. But this isn't because we fear war itself. It's because we understand it all too well." The ambassador's 4 hands came together in a gesture the humans would come to recognize as dismissal. "The Council will protect your species, just as we protect all peace-loving races. Under our guidance, you need never know war again." The meeting continued for hours. The council representatives outlined their proposal. Earth could join the Galactic Council and gain access to advanced technology, trade routes, and cultural exchanges. In return, Earth would need to agree to the Council's security protocols. It, too, was only when they reviewed the details that the human delegation grew concerned. "You want us to dismantle 90% of our military?" Colonel Miller asked, his voice steady despite his shock. "Of course," replied Ambassador Zixaterrell. "All Council members maintain only token defense forces. The Council's peacekeepers handle any serious threats. And our remaining forces would be under Council control?" Colonel Miller continued. "Naturally. This ensures all member species act in harmony with Council directives. The human delegation requested time to consult with Earth's governments. As they gathered in their private chamber, their concern was evident. "They've completely misunderstood us," said Dr. Wright. "They think our desire for peace means we're afraid to fight." Colonel Miller nodded grimly. "And they want us to disarm based on that misunderstanding." John Davis paced the small room. "The bigger question is why? Why push so hard for our disarmament? From what they've told us, the galaxy is largely peaceful. So why the focus on removing our ability to defend ourselves?" "I don't trust them," Colonel Miller said flatly. "Something doesn't add up." The delegation returned to Earth with the Council's proposal. As ships from both sides maintained a careful distance in space, humanity faced its first major interstellar diplomatic challenge. In the weeks that followed, Earth's nations debated fiercely. Some saw opportunity in Council membership, others sensed danger in disarmament. Through it all, the Council representatives maintained their patronizing stance that humans, as a war-fearing species, would be happier under their protection. Little did they know how wrong they were about human nature, and how soon they would learn the truth about the species they had so badly misjudged. 6 months had passed since Earth's first contact with the Galactic Council. The blue and green planet had joined the interstellar community on a provisional basis, accepting some terms while negotiating others. The humans had agreed to reduce their military forces by 40% as a show of good faith, but they refused to dismantle their core defense systems or give up control of their remaining ships. This partial compliance frustrated the Council representatives. They had expected the war-fearing humans to gratefully accept their protection and disarm completely. In his office at the newly built Galactic Embassy in Geneva, John Davis reviewed reports from human diplomats now stationed on various Council worlds. The patterns he saw troubled him deeply. "You need to see this," he said to Dr. Lisa Wright, who had just arrived for their weekly meeting. He handed her a tablet displaying a star map. Lisa studied the glowing dots and lines. "What am I looking at?" "The red marks are worlds that joined the Council in the last 50 years. The yellow highlights show which ones were attacked by the Vrax Empire after joining." John pointed to a disturbing pattern. "Notice anything?" Lisa's eyes widened. "Almost every world that fully disarmed was attacked within 3 years of Council membership." "Exactly." John pulled up another document. "And look at the Council's response to each attack." Lisa read quickly, her expression darkening. "Minimal intervention. Peacekeeping forces arriving days or weeks after initial attacks. Vague statements about regional conflicts." She looked up. "They're letting these worlds fall." Colonel Miller, now General Miller after a recent promotion, entered the office without knocking. His face was grim. "We have a situation," he said. "The Council has called an emergency summit on their capital world. They're demanding our presence, immediately." 2 days later, the Earth delegation stood in the grand chamber of the Council's headquarters. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of species, but all eyes were on the humans. Ambassador Zixaterrell addressed the assembly from a raised platform, its forearms gesturing dramatically. "The human delegation has failed to honor the spirit of Council membership," the ambassador proclaimed. "Despite our patience and guidance, they cling to their military capabilities like frightened younglings clutching toys for comfort." John Davis maintained a calm expression despite his anger at the condescending tone. "Therefore," Zixaterrell continued, "the Council issues this formal ultimatum. Earth must complete the disarmament process within 30 standard days, placing all remaining military assets under Council oversight. Failure to comply will result in sanctions and possible expulsion from Galactic Society. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Expulsion from the Council was a serious threat. It meant loss of trade routes, technology exchanges, and diplomatic protection. General Miller stepped forward. Before we respond to this ultimatum, I'd like to ask about another matter. His voice was steady as he activated a holographic display. This shows attacks by the Vrax Empire on Council worlds over the past 50 years. Can you explain why every attacked world had recently disarmed under Council directive? The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Zix-Teral's skin flushed a deeper blue. These are internal security matters not appropriate for public discussion, the ambassador replied stiffly. I disagree, General Miller countered. If Earth is to consider further disarmament, we need to understand the Council's ability to protect its members. Ambassador Zix-Teral's upper hands made a dismissive gesture. The Vrax situation is complex. Some limited incursions have occurred, but the Council manages these incidents appropriately. By manages, do you mean you sacrifice these worlds? Dr. Wright asked, unable to contain herself. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. Species that fear war as much as humans must be protected from themselves. If some must be sacrificed to maintain galactic harmony, that is an acceptable cost. The blunt admission stunned the Earth delegation. John Davis looked around the chamber, noting that many representatives from smaller worlds seemed equally shocked. Earth rejects this philosophy completely, John stated firmly. We will consider your ultimatum and provide our answer within the required timeframe. As the Earth delegation prepared to return home, they received an urgent message from the lunar colony. General Miller read it aloud to his colleagues in their private shuttle. 3 outer colonies attacked by unknown forces. Heavy casualties reported. Communications disrupted. Dr. Wright activated her tablet. Which colonies? Europa Station, the Mars Eastern Settlement, and the Titan mining outpost, General Miller replied grimly. John Davis looked up. Those are all positioned near the edge of our system, the direction where the Vrax Empire is said to operate. Back in the Council chamber, Ambassador Zix-Teral approached them with an expression the translator suggested was sympathy. We have just received news of incidents in your outer colonies, the ambassador said. The Council offers condolences for your losses. Will you offer assistance as well? General Miller asked. The ambassador's 4 hands performed the now familiar, dismissive gesture. These appear to be internal human conflicts. The Council does not interfere in domestic matters. Internal conflicts? Dr. Wright repeated in disbelief. How could you possibly know that without investigation? Your species is known to be fractious despite your fear of open warfare, the ambassador replied smoothly. We suggest you resolve these internal disputes peacefully. As the Earth shuttle departed for home, Lisa activated a secure channel showing satellite images from the attacked colonies. The grainy footage clearly showed ships of unfamiliar design firing on human settlements. Those aren't human vessels, General Miller said, his jaw tight with anger. John Davis studied the images. Compare them to the database we've built from Council records. Lisa ran the comparison. Within moments, the computer highlighted matching design elements and energy signatures. Vrax warships, she confirmed. No question about it. The 3 humans exchanged looks of grim determination. The Council isn't just failing to protect its members, John Davis said quietly. They're actively collaborating with the Vrax. They expected us to follow their disarmament demands without question, General Miller added. Just like all those other worlds that were later attacked. They thought humans fear war, Dr. Wright said, her voice hard. They're about to learn how wrong they are. As their shuttle approached Earth, they could already see unusual activity in orbit. Secret defense protocols had been activated. Reserve military units were being mobilized. Emergency response teams raced toward the attacked colonies. The sleeping giant was awakening, and the Galactic Council had no idea what they had just provoked. The hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt hummed with activity. For years, Earth had maintained these secret facilities as a contingency plan. Now they worked at full capacity, constructing warships that the Galactic Council never knew existed. General Frank Miller stood on the observation deck of Ceres Command, watching as workers swarmed over the nearly complete hull of the assault carrier UES Defiance. Next to him, Admiral Susan Harris studied production reports on her tablet. "How soon?" General Miller asked. "The first battle group will be ready in 2 weeks," Admiral Harris replied. 3 more will follow every week after that. Miller nodded. "The Council gave us 30 days to surrender our military. They'll get a very different answer than the one they expect." Back on Earth, the United Earth government had declared a state of emergency. Civilian broadcasts spoke of training exercises and defense readiness tests, but behind closed doors, military leaders prepared for war. Retired soldiers and officers returned to service in record numbers. Training facilities operated around the clock. Deep space monitoring stations maintained constant vigilance, tracking Vrax ship movements near the outer colonies. On Mars, in a heavily guarded research complex, Dr. Lisa Wright led a team examining technology salvaged from the attacked colonies. They had recovered damaged Vrax weapons and shield components, working day and night to understand the alien technology. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes as her chief engineer, Ben Foster, burst into the lab. "We found it," Ben exclaimed, holding up a data pad. "The weakness in their shield systems." Lisa took the pad, scanning the findings with growing excitement. "Their shields operate on alternating frequencies, but they leave a gap at this specific electromagnetic range." She looked up. "If we modify our weapons to target that frequency, we can punch right through their defenses," Ben finished. Lisa immediately opened a secure channel to Earth. "Get me General Miller. We have something that will change everything." While Earth prepared militarily, John Davis pursued a different but equally important path. He traveled secretly to worlds that had suffered Vrax attacks, meeting with survivors and resistance leaders. On the forest world of Alara, John sat in a hidden bunker with Keith Nar, a resistance leader whose people had been invaded 3 years earlier. "The Council abandoned us," Kethnar said bitterly. "They promised protection if we disarmed. When the Vrax came, their peacekeepers arrived 2 weeks later, then merely observed as our cities fell." "Earth will not abandon you," John promised. "We're preparing to fight back, but we need allies." Kethnar's eyes widened. "You would challenge both the Vrax and the Council?" "If necessary, yes," John replied. "How many other worlds would join us?" "Many," Kethnar said after a moment. "There are at least 12 worlds with active resistance movements. If Earth truly stands against the Vrax—" "We do," John assured him. "And we're bringing the fight to them." Over the next weeks, John traveled between these resistance worlds, building a network of allies willing to share intelligence and resources with Earth. Each world had pieces of information about Vrax movements and Council complicity. Together, they formed a damning picture. 25 days after the Council's ultimatum, a delegation of Council representatives arrived at Earth's orbital diplomatic station. They expected to finalize Earth's disarmament agreement. Instead, they were met by General Miller, now wearing the insignia of Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. "General Miller," the lead Council representative said, "we are here to oversee the implementation of the disarmament protocols as agreed." "There's been a misunderstanding," Miller replied calmly. "Earth has made no such agreement." The Council representatives exchanged confused glances. "But the ultimatum expires in 5 days. Surely you understand the consequences of non-compliance." "We understand perfectly," Miller said. "There's something else you should understand. Humans don't fear war. We're extraordinarily good at it. We fear unnecessary suffering, which is why we prefer peace. But make no mistake, if war is necessary, you'll discover just how capable we are." The Council representatives stared at him in disbelief. "This is absurd," one of them sputtered. "Your literature, your music, your protests against violence, all evidence of a species that abhors conflict." "You've misinterpreted our culture," Miller explained. We recognize war's cost because we've mastered its art. Your mistake was assuming our desire for peace came from fear rather than wisdom. The council delegation departed in haste, still convinced that humans were bluffing. They reported to Ambassador Zix Terrell that the humans were being stubborn but would surely back down before facing the combined might of the Vrax and the potential isolation from the galactic community. 3 days later, Earth launched its first strike. A fleet of ships that weren't supposed to exist dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a major Vrax outpost by the colony on Europa. Their weapons had been modified based on Dr. Wright's discovery, calibrated to the exact frequency that would penetrate Vrax shields. The battle lasted less than an hour. The Vrax, completely unprepared for an attack from the supposedly war-fearing humans, and even less prepared for weapons that ignored their shields, were overwhelmed. Their outpost fell with minimal human casualties. Similar strikes hit Vrax positions near Mars and Titan. In each case, the human forces struck with precision and overwhelming force, utilizing tactics the Vrax had never encountered. On the Vrax command ship, General Drakmar watched in disbelief as reports of defeats poured in from all sectors. "Impossible," he raged. "The Council assured us humans were weak, that they feared conflict." His communications officer looked up from his console. "Sir, we're receiving reports from other sectors. Resistance forces on multiple worlds have launched coordinated attacks against our garrisons. They're using the same shield-penetrating technology as the humans." Drakmar slammed his fist on his command chair. "The Council betrayed us. Contact High Command immediately." Meanwhile, on the Council capital world, emergency alarms sounded throughout the Grand Chamber. Ambassador Zix Terrell watched in shock as reports of the human victories appeared on the main display. "How is this possible?" the ambassador demanded. "Their military was supposed to be minimal, primitive." A junior aide approached nervously. "Ambassador, we're receiving reports of uprisings on multiple Vrax-occupied worlds. They appear to be coordinating with the humans." For the first time in its long diplomatic career, Ambassador Zix Terrell felt something unfamiliar. Fear. The Council had badly misjudged these humans. They didn't fear war at all. And now, the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous they could be when provoked. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered for an emergency session. The massive screens displayed real-time updates of human victories against Vrax forces. Many council members watched in disbelief as the supposedly peace-loving humans systematically dismantled Vrax military outposts. Ambassador Zix Terrell stood at the central podium, trying to maintain control of the increasingly chaotic session. "Order! We must have order!" the ambassador demanded, all forearms raised for attention. "The human aggression against Vrax territories cannot be tolerated. I propose immediate sanctions against Earth for this unprovoked warmongering." A representative from Alara, one of the worlds John Davis had visited, rose from her seat. Her name was Mira, and her people had suffered under Vrax occupation for years. "Unprovoked?" Mira asked, her voice carrying through the chamber. "The Vrax attacked human colonies first. Or did the Council conveniently forget to mention those attacks in this emergency session?" Murmurs spread through the assembly. Another representative, from the mining world of Tegus, stood up. "My world was told to disarm 5 years ago," he said. "The Council promised protection. 3 months later, the Vrax invaded. Where were the Council peacekeepers then?" More representatives began to speak up, each sharing similar stories. The pattern that John Davis and Dr. Wright had discovered was now being confirmed publicly by the victims themselves. Ambassador Zix Terrell struggled to regain control of the meeting. "These are separate incidents, unfortunate coincidences. The Council has always acted in the best interests of galactic peace. By sacrificing some worlds to maintain a false harmony," Mira challenged, quoting the ambassador's own words from the earlier meeting with the human delegation. The chamber erupted in angry shouts as more representatives demanded answers. For many, this was the first time they had realized how widespread the pattern of sacrifice had been. Meanwhile, Earth forces continued their campaign against Vrax strongholds. General Miller directed operations from the command center of the UES Defiance, now fully operational and leading a battle group near a Vrax-occupied world called Navara. Status report, Miller ordered as the fleet prepared to engage. Vrax defenses are on high alert, reported Captain Alex Ward. They've adjusted some of their shield frequencies, but Dr. Wright's team has updated our targeting systems accordingly. Miller nodded. Begin the liberation of Navara. The battle that followed was swift and decisive. Earth ships, using the advanced targeting data provided by Dr. Wright, broke through Vrax defenses with minimal losses. Ground forces landed to support local resistance fighters who had risen up at the signal from Earth. Each victory brought more allies to Earth's cause. Dr. Wright made sure that each liberated world received the shield-penetrating technology, evening the playing field against superior Vrax numbers. On the planet Kelvin, John Davis met with representatives from 20 formerly occupied worlds. They gathered in an underground bunker, planning the next phase of their rebellion against both the Vrax and the corrupt council leadership. "We've discovered something disturbing," John told the assembly, displaying documents on a large screen. "These records show regular resource transfers from Vrax-controlled mining worlds to private accounts belonging to senior council officials." "Bribes," growled Kethnar, the resistance leader from Alara. "Exactly," John confirmed. "The council leadership has been receiving valuable minerals and energy sources in exchange for identifying vulnerable worlds for the Vrax to target." The revelation sparked outrage among the representatives. What had begun as a human defense against Vrax aggression was evolving into a full-scale rebellion against the corrupt Galactic Council system. Back on the Council capital world, Ambassador Zix Terrell received alarming news in a private chamber, away from the still arguing council members. "The humans have broken our encryption," reported a nervous aide. "They're releasing documents about our arrangement with the Vrax leadership." Zix Terrell's skin darkened with anger. "This cannot be allowed to spread. We need to end this human problem immediately." "The Vrax High Command reports they're assembling their main fleet," the aide continued. "They plan to attack Earth directly." "Good," Zix Terrell replied. "Let them solve our problem for us." "Should we warn Earth about the incoming fleet?" the boy aide asked. "Of course not," Zix Terrell said dismissively. "We will simply express our deep regret after the humans have been dealt with. It will serve as a valuable lesson to other species who might consider defying council wisdom." The aide left, troubled by the ambassador's callousness. Unknown to Zix Terrell, the aide immediately contacted a member of the growing rebellion within the council itself. Earth's intelligence network, now spanning multiple worlds, detected the Vrax fleet mobilization. General Miller convened an emergency meeting with his senior officers. "They're coming for Earth," Miller stated, showing the tracking data. "The Vrax are committing almost their entire remaining fleet to this attack." "They're desperate, Admiral," Harris observed. "We've hurt them badly." "What's the Council's response?" asked Colonel Peter Young, head of Earth's ground forces. "They know about the fleet movement but are deliberately withholding the information," Miller replied. "They're hoping the Vrax will solve their human problem." Rather than fear, the gathered officers showed grim determination. "Then we'll be ready," Admiral Harris said. "We've prepared for this possibility." Miller nodded. "Implement Operation Hornet's Nest. Let's show them what happens when you corner humans." As the massive Vrax armada approached Earth's solar system, they encountered no resistance at the outer planets. The Vrax commander, Admiral Vor, was puzzled by the apparent lack of human defenses. "Our intelligence indicated they had ships in this sector," Vor said to his second-in-command. "Where? Is their fleet?" "Perhaps they've retreated to defend their homeworld," the officer suggested. "Cowards," Vor sneered. "Just as the Council described them. They talk boldly but flee when truly threatened." The Vrax fleet pressed forward, entering the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was there that the trap was sprung. Hidden, among the asteroids powered down to avoid detection, waited 5 battle groups of Earthships. As the Vrax fleet passed into the center of the belt, mining charges previously planted on key asteroids detonated, sending waves of debris into the tightly packed Vrax formation. As the Vrax ships scrambled to avoid collisions, the Earth fleet powered up and attacked from all sides. Dr. Wright's shield-penetrating technology once again proved devastating. The battle was short, but fierce. Caught in the crossfire and unable to maneuver effectively among the asteroids, the Vrax fleet suffered catastrophic losses. Admiral Vor, watching his Grand Armada disintegrate, finally understood how badly they had misjudged humanity. When the battle ended, the surviving Vrax ships, less than 20% of the original fleet, surrendered to Earth forces. From the bridge of the UES Defiance, General Miller issued a broadcast that was relayed throughout Council space. Humanity never feared war. We simply understood its cost better than most. Now you understand too. 1 year had passed since the decisive battle in the asteroid belt. The galaxy had changed in ways few could have imagined, before Earth shocked everyone with its military prowess and unwavering resolve. John Davis stood at the window of his new office in the reformed Galactic Council headquarters. The view showed the sprawling capital city, now bustling with representatives from worlds that had once been voiceless in galactic affairs. A soft chime announced a visitor. John turned to see Mira from Alara enter, carrying reports for the day's session. "The last of the corruption trials has concluded," Mira said, handing John a datapad. "Ambassador Zix Terrell and 14 other senior council officials have been found guilty of conspiracy with the Vrax Empire." John reviewed the information with a satisfied nod. "Justice has been a long time coming for many worlds. And it might never have come without Earth," Mira added. "My people will never forget what humans did for us." After the asteroid belt victory, evidence of the Council leadership's corruption had spread rapidly throughout galactic society. Worlds that had suffered under Vrax attacks united in demanding reform. The old Council structure collapsed within weeks as more officials were implicated in the scandal. John Davis, respected for his role in building the coalition that exposed the corruption, had been the first human appointed to the Reformed Council's Executive Committee. Under his guidance, the Council adopted a new charter emphasizing genuine protection for all member worlds and respect for each species' right to self-defense. Across the city in a large research complex, Dr. Lisa Wright supervised the final tests of the new, faster-than-light communication network. This technology, developed from a combination of human ingenuity and knowledge shared by other Council species, would ensure that no world could be isolated during a crisis again. "Signal strength at 100% across all test nodes," reported Ben Foster, now her chief of operations. "The system is ready to go live." Lisa smiled with satisfaction. "Activate the network." With a few keystrokes, Ben initiated the system. Across the galaxy, communication hubs lit up, connecting thousands of worlds in real-time communication for the first time in galactic history. If the old Council had created this instead of hoarding power, so many tragedies could have been avoided, Lisa observed. "That's why your new research institute is so important," Ben replied. "No more keeping knowledge from those who need it." The Earth Interspecies Research Institute had become one of Lisa's proudest achievements. Scientists from hundreds of worlds now worked together, sharing discoveries openly rather than allowing advanced technology to be controlled by a privileged few. On a military station orbiting the planet, General Frank Miller met with officers from 24 species. They represented the new multi-species defense force created to provide genuine protection for vulnerable worlds. "The training exercises exceeded expectations," reported Admiral Susan Harris, now Miller's second-in-command. "The combined fleet is ready for its first official patrol mission." Miller looked around the table at the diverse group of officers. Some came from worlds that had suffered Vrax occupation. Others represented species that had been manipulated by the old Council for generations. All shared a common purpose, ensuring that no predatory empire could ever again prey on weaker worlds with impunity. "This force represents something unprecedented," Miller told them. "Not just military cooperation, but a commitment to a principle, strength used in service of justice, not exploitation." The Vrax themselves had retreated to their home system after their defeat at Earth's hands. Their empire dismantled, they had recently requested peace negotiations, their new leadership having overthrown the military dictators who had led them to disaster, sought a way to rejoin galactic society without the conquest that had defined their culture for centuries. Later that day, representatives from across the galaxy gathered for a ceremony marking the first anniversary of what many now called the Liberation. A new monument was being unveiled in the central plaza of the council city. John Davis had been asked to give the main address. As he approached the podium, he saw familiar faces in the crowd. General Miller and Dr. Wright sat in the front row. Beyond them were representatives from dozens of formerly occupied worlds, now free and rebuilding. 1 year ago, John began, the galaxy witnessed something it did not expect. A species that had been judged as fearful of conflict demonstrated that understanding the cost of war is not the same as fearing it. The crowd listened in respectful silence. The old council believed that peace could be maintained through weakness and appeasement. They were wrong. True peace requires strength, justice, and vigilance. It requires the courage to stand against those who would prey on the vulnerable. John gestured to the covered monument behind him. Humans don't fear war. We respect it. We know its power, its cost, and its necessity when justice demands it. What we truly fear is standing idle while others suffer. That is the lesson this galaxy will not soon forget. At his signal, the covering fell away, revealing the monument. A simple earth olive branch crossed with a sword. Beneath it, an inscription in multiple languages read, "Peace through strength, justice through action. Never again will the peaceful be sacrificed to preserve a false harmony." The crowd erupted in applause. Species that had once been enemies now stood together, united in a vision of a galaxy where strength protected the weak rather than exploited them. As the ceremony concluded, John rejoined his friends. Not bad for a species that was supposed to fear conflict, General Miller commented with a smile. The old council never understood us, Dr. Wright added. They mistook our desire for peace as weakness. Their greatest mistake, John said, looking out at the diverse crowd celebrating together, was failing to realize that the species most dedicated to peace must also be most prepared for war. As dusk fell on the council world, the stars began to appear overhead. Among them, Earth shone as a distant point of light. Once an isolated world on the galactic fringe, it had become a beacon of hope and strength for countless species. The Galactic Council had claimed humans feared war. Reality had taught them a very different lesson, one the galaxy would remember for generations to come.